Welcome to Shrimperscast with me, Steve Mansfield.
And me, Paul Hill. On today's show,
Blues best Eastleigh before being sunk by Sutton and riled by Fylde in a disappointing week on the pitch.
New signing Macaulay Bonne arrives to lift Shrimpers' spirits, but the results don't follow to keep the vibes lasting long.
Bernie's back as we bring you part one of our highly anticipated exclusive interview with Chairman Justin Rees and COSU member Tom Arnold.
And we look ahead as Blues seek to bounce back with two away fixtures against Solihull Moors on Saturday and Wealdstone on Tuesday.
Hello and welcome to Shrimperscast. I'm here with Paul. Paul, how are you, mate? You all right?
Ahoy. Yeah, I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. You've had a very busy few days.
Yeah.
You've been away, you've been working away, you've been watching Southend.
Yeah, man.
You've been gigging, you've been doing all sorts. So
doing it all.
You look a little bit of a shadow of your former self, but, you know, a good bit of kip and you'll be right as rain.
I need some sleep, man. I need some sleep. No, on Monday, I left to go to Nottingham.
Yeah.
To your rivals, Nottingham Forest.
Ooh.
And I must say, I did sit in the, when I do the interviews, I sat in his chair and then I went, "You Rams!"
Just for me.
Just for you, yeah.
Nice one.
Absolutely. But there, we had a good club event there. And then I had to get over to Wolverhampton, to the Molyneux, ready for a event the day after. But then I looked at the old Google Maps, right, and he said I was only 1 hour 58 away from Fylde, and it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I thought, yeah, why not? So I booted it up there, and then I got about halfway there, and then just stuck in traffic, and I missed about the majority of the first half.
No,
yeah,
man. Oh, man.
I got in there and it was like 1-0 down, and I was like, oh, what? And then everyone I talked to was like, yeah, you haven't missed much. It's been a bit pants. But then, we'll talk about the game later.
We'll talk about the game in a minute.
Booted it back to Wolverhampton for 12:30.
Yeah.
Got into my bed, up again at the crack of dawn today, over to Molyneux for our schools competition. Molyneux is a nice stadium.
Is it?
It's huge.
I've never been.
It's lovely. Very orange.
Yeah.
Or gold.
Nice.
It's orange. Yeah. But no, it was good. And then I've just booted it back straight here to see you.
I know, literally, straight out your car, straight into my house to record this. So you've been busy. It's also been a very busy week for Southend United and for Shrimperscast. So we're delighted to say this is the episode where we are dropping the first part of our exclusive interview with Justin Rees, the new chairman, and also a member of COSU, Tom Arnold. Really grateful to those guys for their time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that interview before we bring it to you shortly. The way we're going to do it is we're going to do the first half this episode and save the second half for the next episode, because we got like over an hour, so we don't want to kind of make this episode too laborious for all of you out there.
6 hours long.
Yeah, exactly, like an epic Godfather trilogy. But before we get to that, obviously really exciting, and it is really, really good quality and really, really insightful and open. We've got a lot to talk about on the pitch.
Yeah, loads.
So we didn't do an episode last week, so we've got 3 games to kind of talk through, 3 sets of results, and it's fair to say it's been a mixed bag. I think it's probably been slightly more disappointing than many fans would have hoped. So it started out last Tuesday night with a 2-0 win, which is obviously very positive. And that was at home to Eastleigh.
Yeah, what a game.
Good game.
First half, unbelievable. It's the best I've seen Southend play in a very long time. And you just thought the bar is rising, it's going to keep rising, it's just going to get better. Yeah. But, great first half. Really, really good. Really, thoroughly enjoyed it. Played some neat stuff. Yeah. Loads of movement going around. Very enjoyable.
Controlled the game
massively. When Ralphie scoring the first goal as well, at the back post.
Who needs strikers, eh?
Who needs strikers when you've got your wing backs scoring for fun?
And your centre-backs.
Yeah. But no, it was great to see him score. And then Bridge with the penalty as well. Yeah. But I don't know what happened there with the penalty. It was a bit weird. Yeah. Because there was a bit of a scramble like in the pitch, and then the ref just was like, "Penno." Yeah. So I don't know if the guy went down, caught the ball or what, or if it hit him on the arm. I don't know.
You take him though, don't you?
You take him. Yeah, we've had so many go against us over the years, but yeah, you take that. But not bad. And then we got to see our new signing, Macaulay Bonne.
Yeah.
How would you pronounce it?
I don't know. Bonne, I think.
Bonne.
I would.
Yeah, I like Bonne.
I know, you're going French.
Yeah, it sounds like a fine kind of wine, doesn't it? No, but yeah, he does look good. I mean, hopefully we'll get to see a lot more of him as he gets fitter. And Afire Forson, he came on. He looked pretty decent, but Moncur again had a great game.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's just... he's consistent at the moment. I think every time I've seen George Moncur play, I'm like, hey, what a player. And But yes, we go ahead and we get the points, and credit to I think it was about 47 Eastleigh fans made the trip. You know, you've got to tip your hat to that. Hardcore,
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night under the lights at Roots Hall. So, well done to them for popping out and watching them get beat. So, happy days.
Happy days. And then it was another home game. Sutton United welcomed to the Hall, and I mean, it looked to be going really well, didn't it, early on?
Yeah.
That man, I mean, this guy is just unreal. Like, okay, it's been a disappointing week in terms of results, but when you've got a right wing back who's got 7 goals in 9 games, I mean,
bonkers.
It's absolutely insane, and he got his 6th goal in 8 games at home against Sutton in the 11th minute. So clearly everyone's going to be quite excited at that point. But it sounds like a calamity in the second half, defensive collapse.
Oh, mate, I think you're not going to get many games like that where everything goes wrong. You know, you can go 1-0 up. I think everything went wrong. You know, 2 players going for the same ball. Colin, unfortunately, missed kicking quite a bit, and then own goal. Well, I don't know. I think you've got to chalk those kind of games off.
Yeah.
You know, and Sutton, happy days, well done, you won 3-1, but I don't think we're going to get many games like that where we're going to get beat. Yeah,
it sounds like kind of big mistakes that are costing goals, which you hope I'm sure Kev's looking at that thinking, well, that's the type of stuff that you can correct, it's the type of stuff that you can work on in training, and, you know, just try and get that discipline back, get that sort of confidence and all of that stuff. So hopefully it's not a sign of kind of something more troublesome.
Well, no, I don't think it is, because we've been playing all right. You know? And again, you know, it's just one of these things, I think, it's just a shame when you go 1-0 up and then to get spanked 3-1. I don't think it would have been a 3-1 game, you know what I mean? I mean, they have come down from League 2, so, you know, they are looking to bounce back and get back up there. And but, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over losing that game. We're not going to lose many at home, hopefully.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's just things that hopefully they can iron out on the training pitch, in the training ground.
And then another, I guess, disappointing, bit of a wounder, really, last night, the game that you went to, Fylde. You know, it does, looking at when they scored, is it about concentration? That first one, kind of bounced in the box, and then the guy comes in with the header at the back post. It looked like Colin might have done slightly better with the first one on the highlights that I saw.
Right.
And then, you know, you've got so that's on the 45th or 46th minute. Southend come back into it with another goal from Super Gus.
Good goal though.
It was a good goal, but then. And then again, you know, and Southend really, and I saw Kev's post-match, and he was saying really disappointing because we'd come back into it. We looked like the most likely team to win it.
Yep.
But a sucker punch. So the first half ends with a goal to them. Second half ends with a goal to them. And I don't know, do you look at that and think, is that a concentration thing? I mean, it was a good finish, the second goal. But you've got to see these things out, haven't you? You know, at that point, it's kind of like use all your experience.
I think we were going for the win.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I didn't see the first half because I was too busy being parked on the M6. But the second half, it was great. You know, we were really going for it, and you could just tell the class of Moncur and Bonne, and it was a great little deft header for him. And then, you know, the goal machine, Gus Scott Morris smashing it in. Keeper had no chance, but you know, Bonne could have scored as well. Keeper made a smart save. We did have chances to. You know,
looked like both teams had chances on the highlights. I saw like Colin made a few saves first half and stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, it looked as though they were just going to try and hit us on the break. I mean, they just lost their manager, new guys come in, so he's got his own ideas and whatnot. And they did. So there was a few times where they just bombed up. And you thought, oh no, here we go. But we seemed to, you know, dealing with everything they were throwing at us.
Yeah.
But and you know, they made 3 or 4 subs, I think, towards the end, and they were just fresh legs with like 10 to go, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was like, what was it, 92nd minute they scored or something like that?
Yeah, just literally last minute, but, proper wounder.
I think it felt like we were kind of running out of steam because we were just hammering them. That last 5 minutes going into injury time. And but at one point, I didn't even think the second half would be kicking off because the ref was, crapping it. He was going, "Oh, there's a drone above the stadium." No,
I heard some rumours about this drone. Right?
He pulled the players off.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Yeah, there was a drone." Then he put them on. Then he took them off.
Yeah.
Then he put them back on again, and you're just thinking.
And the rumour is, I don't know if this is unsubstantiated, so this is not confirmed, but it was the first team coach driver's drone. Have you not seen this?
No.
No, the Southend first team coach driver's drone. This was the rumour. I saw it on Twitter. I don't know. It might be nonsense, so don't sue us. But it sounded like that's what the Twitter was saying.
Oh well,
X.
You can't believe everything you read on the internet. But
absolutely not. So look, 1 win, 2 losses.
I think that defeat was a bit harsh. So you can't really.
Yeah.
There was a few. I get it. There was a few fans out there that really emotional. It's hard, isn't it?
And Kev brought the players over as usual.
Yeah.
To applaud, and there was a little bit of frustration from Gus. I think, is that right?
Yeah, but they've really hammered it for a good 45 minutes. Gave it all, and it is it's gutting, isn't it? When you concede so late.
Yeah.
It is harsh,
yeah.
But. We just got to dust ourselves down. Look forward now to Solihull away, and then away at Fylde, away at Solihull, away at Wealdstone. It's going to be tough, but the division is tough. The whole league is tough, and we've got to roll our sleeves up and get stuck in.
Got to fight for every point, as they say. Nothing comes easy. So we are going to take a little break in a mo, and then we will be bringing you the first part of our long-awaited interview with Justin and Tom. Back in a mo.
Wallop.
Welcome back, and now we are really, really excited to bring you the first part of this interview that's been in the offing for probably feels like a year. I don't think it can be quite a year, but we contacted Justin as soon as it looked like a realistic chance that he was going to be involved in the takeover, and for good reasons. They didn't want to do any press or any interviews prior to actually signing on the dotted line and getting the deal over the line. And now we're just so grateful to both Justin and Tom, because they welcomed us to Roots Hall before the Sutton game on Saturday. And they were so generous, not just with their time, but also, you will hear, with their answers, with the amount of detail that they've provided, and they were just so very open. So a massive thanks. And we bought Bernie out of retirement as well, didn't we, to get him back involved. And big thanks to Bern as well for conducting the interview. So, Paul, look, I'm a neutral in all this, really. So I want to know, as a long-suffering 35 years you've had
and counting,
following Southend, home and away. Obviously, that time takes in that Ron Martin era.
Yeah.
And how was it? We were both there. We both witnessed this. And how was it as a fan, a long-suffering fan, to be there and to hear what these guys have got to say?
Unbelievable. You just cannot help but be buzzing with everything, really. Just the openness, the transparency. We've had years, decades, right, of being lied to, not being told the truth. We don't know what is going on. So to have it just completely laid out and explained diligently, like the direction, the strategy, just everything, you cannot help but be excited as a Southend fan. Yeah, of course, results aren't going on in the pitch, but that's a fact of life, isn't it, in football? You win matches, you lose matches. Things go your way, things don't go your way. But what you can do off the pitch and make a club sustainable, and the way that they're going about their work is just admirable. And, we've been crying out for transparency for decades, years, and we finally got it. And, you just can't help but be just excited, just be absolute. I'm buzzed. I don't know what to say. I'm losing everything, and I want to go for a jog. I'm so excited. It's mental. But thank you so much, Justin and Tom, because it's they gave up their time, and Were we sitting in Ron's old office?
Yeah, that was Ron's old office. Yeah. They're like stuck on the top, I think. It's like a porter cabin that's like built on top, yeah.
But no, it was, absolutely fantastic. And I can't wait for everyone to hear it. And thanks again, gentlemen. Sterling work.
So we're going to bring you that first part now. So just to remind you, first 40 minutes or so will be in this episode, and then the following kind of 35 minutes or so will follow next week. So keep your eyes peeled. And without further ado, here it is.
Huzzah.
Welcome to Shrimperscast, which today is coming to you from Ron Martin's old office, high above the East End. It's a weird feeling sitting here, like being behind enemy lines following the end of a great war. And the two people joining me in the bunker have certainly pushed their blue flags firmly into the ground. So welcome again to new Southend Chairman Justin Rees and fellow COSU Consortium member Tom Arnold.
All right,
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Right, before we get to the really tough subjects, Forex or Fosters, the state of the Wealdstone dunnies, and how many dingo dollars are sitting in the consortium's bank account, I thought we should do a little housekeeping.
Okay.
Some of these topics may be well known to some and not so much to others. And I know it's important to you guys to be transparent to the fans. So let's break down all the pieces of the puzzle if we can. Do COSU now own 100% of the club?
Well, no, we own 95%. This is not... The Southend United.
Yeah.
We own 95% of that. The other 5% is owned by various fans. But COSU also has a new company it's created called POSU, Properties of Southend United, which will hold anything to do with Roots Hall, the training ground, whether it's a lease or freehold.
More the property side.
Yeah. All the properties will be in there, and the football club is the football club, but no, we own 95%. But we owned everything that Ron had.
Yeah.
And Ron did a debt-to-equity swap to take his percentage from 70-ish to 95.
Yeah.
We then got all of that for the pound, but there are other fans that own 1 share, 2 shares, 10 shares, 20 shares. They still own those shares.
I think it was just to confirm for people that might not be aware that he's totally gone, Ron's out the picture.
Bit of feedback, Bernie. Could have worded it that way. Would have been a bit more fun.
Yeah.
But yes, he doesn't own any more shares in Southend United.
When you bought the club,
Yeah.
were you lumbered with other historic debts, Bentley servicing charges, helicopter fuel bills, and receipts for unused Lego sets?
Yeah, we bought the club with lots of old debt. I haven't seen any Lego. But yeah, we bought debt. But we knew that, of course. We knew how much debt we were buying, and that was part of the deal.
Can you put a figure on what the debt was that you inherited?
About 2.5 million.
2.5 million.
I don't know why I said about 2.5 million.
Okay.
Pretty much exactly.
Yeah, exactly, to the penny. Yep.
Okay. You've got on record to confirm in the past that the club had been losing 2 million a season.
Yep.
Is that still the case, or have things like the near 4,500 season ticket sales made a difference, which obviously amazing season ticket sales from the fans?
Yeah, really amazing from the fans, and thanks again from all of us for that, right? It's amazing. We lost about 2 million last year. We think we'll lose about 1.7 million this year. The increased crowds, so we've assumed about 7,300 average crowds. Right now, that's looking pretty good. It can go up, it can go down, so keep coming, please. But even with those really high, almost bizarre for National League level crowds, we still think we'll come in at about a £1.7 million loss. The crowd's been higher. We knew that would go up because I think we all knew there'd be a post-transaction imbalance. But how much is kind of hard to know. It's been higher than even what we expected, I think, which is fantastic. It's allowed us to put a little bit more money into the playing squad. But obviously, we're still going to lose 1.7 with those crowds, so it's a long way to go.
Yeah. So obviously, you're still heavily subsidising the club.
Yeah, 1.7 million pounds a year. It's funny, actually, in the first board meeting, we sat there and said, right, let's have a stretch target. Let's try and lose 1.6 million pounds this year. And then we'll all have... And I was like, what fucking business is this? Where a stretch target is losing 1.6 million a year, and we're all going to celebrate and pay some bonuses if we achieve that. Exactly. I mean, borderline horrendous result, right? But
it's important that we know this, right, as well. It's not like we're coming into it and then discovering that we're going to have to do this. This is all part of the early conversations about...
Your eyes are wide open, aren't they?
You're wide open to it. You know, obviously our intention is to try and reduce that to 1.8, to 1.6, to 1.5, to eventually get to a stage where it will be sustainable and almost be organic and run itself. But that's going to take a lot of work, a lot of extra, external revenue to help us to get there. But where we are now is where we thought we would be. The season ticket sales were, as Justin said, incredible, and is a huge reward for us seeing that come back in. And it is a huge step to reducing that there, but it's going to take a bit of time. But it's not, as I say, our eyes are open to it. It's not like oh God, this has happened.
Are there things short term that can ease that burden? Financial burden?
Little things, right? Little things like we're going to try and bring the Northwest Quadrant that's currently unavailable online. That will help when we sell. We can currently sell about 8,000 for home fans, and there's the North Block is currently 800 for away.
Yeah.
So if we bring the Northwest back online, and we manage to sell above 8,000, that'll help. There's probably nothing. I mean, fans are doing their bit, right? So
yes.
We can't. It's not like we can go. Let's just get to 13,000 crowds. Realistically, I think fans are doing their bit. The real dents will be when we bring on new services like 4G pitches that could be rented out to the public. Ultimately, a new East stand. That will be the game-changing things where you got to spend money to make truly new money.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's an important point, that we want to drive towards break-even, but not all of that can come from the same match-going fans. There's only so much.
Well, football, people's bums on seats is like once a fortnight. That changed a long time ago.
Exactly.
There needs to be other revenues.
And people,
I think people know that.
And people are seeing it as well with local businesses, again, which is huge for us. We're trying to maximise that and sell the club to local businesses, which is going really well, and that helps us, pay for improvements that obviously we would have been paying for. They come on board and they help us in that form. Again, that's not going to make a huge dent now, but that's something in 3 or 5 years that's going to pay dividends to us as we go forward. So again, thanks to the local businesses that are showing their support for us at the start as well.
Right, so you guys own the club now. You're the custodians, which everyone is grateful for. So yet again, thank you very much for doing what you did.
Welcome.
And one of the greatest parts of your takeover for me, and I'd imagine most supporters, was the overwhelming desire to stay at Roots Hall, our spiritual home, and not move to a soulless, click and fix lump of plastic with no history in the middle of nowhere. But Ron still owns Roots Hall. He's the club's landlord, correct?
He is. We have a lease at the moment, a long lease for 25 years, and that will actually grow to an even longer lease. There's some steps where things change over time, but ultimately we'll end up with a freehold for £1 once the Fawcett's plans to remove the stadium are confirmed. And I think if you delve into it, it makes sense, right? Companies external to our football club have lent money against this idea that there'd be a stadium and properties at Roots Hall. It's all well and good agreeing in principle, but until that formalises and there is no stadium obligation at Fawcett's, of course, companies are going to keep their security here until the plan officially changes. So when that planning permission goes through, we get the freehold.
Okay, so that's definitely, and that's a pound for the ground when that time comes.
Correct, yeah. And in the interim, we've got a lease that really says we can do whatever we want. So it's not like a true tenant-landlord relationship where the rights are maybe a little bit more...
I mean, is there anything legally binding that this has to happen that way? Obviously, it all... it's what happens at Fawcett's Farm is obviously a big part of that, but that is legally binding.
Yeah, there's contracts that say as soon as that happens, the freehold transfers. So
all parties are heavily incentivised to get to that point. So there's no benefit for someone.
Which I can imagine was why it took so long with the due diligence and everything else, because that had to be spot on, didn't it? Watertight.
It did. Well, I mean, in the end of eventually we had to decouple from the let's wait for the council deal to sign because we ran out of time. The league were obviously causing us some challenges there, so we had to eventually say, look, we know what the plan is. The council's going to sign a new property deal, but we're out of time. So we either had to walk away or do the deal without that. So we did the deal, but the contracts say, hey, when this happens, that happens. So we're pretty relaxed about it.
Are you paying rent to be here?
No.
No rent at all, okay.
No.
So, I mean, playing devil's advocate, there's no worries at any time, Ron being Ron, that he could pull the plug and evict you from here?
No.
No, so that's watertight, you can't do that.
Well, if I end up being wrong, then I'll become a meme, but no, we're relaxed.
Okay, good. Okay. As part of the deal, I believe, Ron has to transfer funds to the consortium to help with the Roots Hall makeover. Transforming our rotten theatre of grime into a theatre of dreams once again. The original sum touted was 20 million, but I believe that's changed. What is it now?
Yeah, it'll be between 7 million and 12 million, and that kind of depends on exactly what goes on at Fawcett's. So there's kind of 3 scenarios. I won't go into too much detail, but there's 3 scenarios, really how big is the council deal? Does it end up being this big or that big? So it's a range at the moment, but it's a clear range. So we know if this plays out at 7, if that plays out it's 10, if that plays out it's 11, and if that plays out it's 12.
Okay. So it's fairly fluid then, obviously, with what goes on in the future.
It's fluid, and again, base case, as Justin said, there's a range. Obviously, we work our base case around to the lower end of that, as you would do if you're planning. So
yeah,
I'm not saying that we only expect this, and if we get that, it's a bonus. But it's hard to plan exactly without knowing exactly what that number's going to be. So we do our best to plan on the minimum.
And what would you have to do? Sorry, what were you going to say, Justin?
Also, there's 3 or 4 known scenarios. Either the council do a deal or they don't. If they do a deal, they deliver all of it or some of it. So the situation is there's really 4 or 5 known scenarios, but of course, who knows what happens in the future? So we've mapped out any one of those, and the number flexes fairly logically based on what that Fawcett's gives Ron. Obviously dictates what we can get. That's quite reasonable, I think.
Yeah.
What hasn't changed is we need 20 million to do what we want to do at Roots Hall.
Yeah.
And the training ground. So when we first signed this deal back in October of last year, we thought we were getting 20 million. So we all looked at each other and said, right, have we got the money to cover all the the 1.7 million pound losses every year, etc. Now we've got to find an extra 8 million. So that's one of our tasks. And there's creative ways of doing that, not just running around looking for pots of gold for a bank. That's one of our challenges, to go and find that extra money to finance the 20 million that we believe truly needs to be spent in our various facilities. So we're off trying to solve that problem, whilst of course paying for the operating losses of the club.
But just back to that money again. I mean, when would you expect to receive that payment? And would that be in instalments, or would it be in one go?
No instalments. As stuff happens over there, money flows. It's all predefined in a contract. Are we talking as soon as the spade goes in the ground, or does it have to be built before you get it? How does it work? A combination of both. Some stuff, in the back of my mind, I'm going, hey, I'm all for transparency. We have a contract, so I'm trying to always make sure I'm not. But I don't think anything here is controversial. I don't think Ron would mind it. Some stuff when spade goes in the ground, the other stuff when houses are finished building. It's split into buckets.
Yeah, the only reason I asked that, and I know it's hard to sometimes say these things, but I think a lot of people will be very sceptical because they've seen Ron try and pull off his development dream for 25 years.
Yeah, although building a £70 million stadium that was probably thought of when rates were 1% and the club was in, League One, doing that with rates at 7% and the club in the National League, that's a different world, right? So the prospect now is go and build houses and no stadium. It's a lot easier to finance that and do that than it is to build a £70 million stadium. So I get the scepticism because stuff happened, but their ability to get planning and build a bunch of homes, I think it's a lot easier path than the previous one where I don't know how anyone was ever building a £70 million.
I think the council were more up for that than they would have been for a Hilton hotel or a cinema or retail units, aren't they? That's the other thing as well.
Yeah, so I think
it's attractive to the council.
What we're relying on is more of a win-win-win than perhaps before. I know a lot of people want to stay at Roots Hall, us included, the consortium, particularly the other guys. I'm honest enough to admit that when I came along, looking at a new stadium has its advantages when you're looking at a spreadsheet. All the other guys, Jason and George were the first 2 that I spoke to. The guys that have been Southend fans forever really wanted to stay at Roots Hall. And of course, that's the route we went. But sometimes you end up hating a plan, not because it's a bad plan, but just because it never gets executed, right? So again, staying at Roots Hall, I think everyone loves that plan, but they'll only love it if we refresh it and execute it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Difference between a good plan and a bad plan is, do you execute? So our job now is to execute on our new plan to make sure that we all look back fondly on the decision. But it won't be easy, and finding the money is one of the first steps in that.
Well, I think you've answered most of this next question already. I think everyone can see you've carried out some nice little touches over the last few months around the ground. We've got a new scoreboard. There was the new box, the murals of the managerial legends that have just been put up on the walls, and more opportunities to access alcohol pre-match in the West Stand. So from what we were just talking about, do you need Ron's funding before you can start doing major regeneration work? Or, like you say, could this come from other avenues?
We certainly can't kick off major works. You can see we're doing some stuff, and everything we're doing is funded by us.
Yep.
But yeah, before we go and do a £15 million East Stand, we need to know where the money's coming from, and we're COSU's not going to chuck 15 million in. Man, I wish I had 15 million spare. But bringing on the Northwest Quadrant, it might be, say, 100K. We're going to do that. We'll just fund it ourselves. No bank's going to lend against our Schmozzler finances just yet. So we'll do a bunch of stuff ourselves. We're trying to do some little things in the West Stand. It depends on licensing. I'm sure some fans are going, God, do these guys know that it's hard to get a beer? Of course we know.
Yeah.
But it's not as easy as, hey, the guys in the Euros had beer backpacks. Why don't we just do that? Like licensing and things like that. I mean, it's not so even I've gone, hey, Tom, why can't we just do this and this? But yeah, it's not as simple as it might seem. But we want to do some tactical stuff. For example, our away fans can't get a beer at the moment. We'd like to do a little bit there, but we're not going to spend huge money on away fans until we fix the experience for home fans. So I guess what you'd say is to do major things, we need to solve financing. And some of that will be Ron's money. And it doesn't matter that it's not coming today as long as we're confident when it is coming. And there'll be other things that we can do. But that doesn't stop us doing several, let's call it smaller improvements that I'm hoping everyone's seeing, right? We're chipping away at little stuff. Yeah. But yeah, mass change. We need to have line of sight of all the funding before we start. And look at our history, right? Just millions was spent on designing a stadium that ultimately we didn't move into. So we have no interest in making that mistake. So that's not.
It's had more regenerations than Doctor Who, that stadium. Ridiculous. Let's move away from Rootsall for a minute and get our bibs on for a look at the new training ground.
Yeah.
I believe the players are already getting their studs stuck into the turf over there. But what other work needs to be done in the short and long term at the training ground? What's the vision for that?
I'd almost see the training ground into two halves. There's going to be 4 pitches there. 2 for Kev, let's just call it that, 2 first-team pitches. The grass is just about there. It wasn't as ready. We wanted the grass, just the pitches, ready for the start of the season. It wasn't. So it's a bit behind, so you would have seen Kev had to go back to boots and laces, which wasn't the plan. But the grass is getting there. I think they've trained on it a couple of times recently. And it takes a bit of time to bed these pitches in because they're not just standard, grass at Garrans. They're, magic grass, and they need a lot of care. The main thing we need, other than keep looking after the pitches and getting them to the right standard, is to put the cabins in with gyms and, I don't know what they have there, like physio cabins and whatever. That's happening over the next couple of months. So I'm hoping by January, all the facilities are there and the guys no longer need to go back to boots and laces.
Okay, and I think you touched on a minute ago about artificial pitches over there. I mean, for 3G, and that'll be something that you'd look to use to bring in revenue for the public hiring out as well.
Correct. So the 2 halves, I said, we've got 4 pitches, 2 for Kev. Immediately, we need to put cabins in, and we are. Everything takes time. Everything needs planning permission. Then you need to fit out. Everything takes time.
There's a lot of work that goes on, with potential grants and with Sport England and stuff that we can look at. So, as Justice said, on other stuff, it's not something we want to rush into. Put some grass down, get the boys over there and forget about it. It's got to be really thought out that we don't have to redo work. We're trying to be as economical as possible in creating this. Obviously, it would have been nice to have it done earlier, but things happened that we couldn't do it. So we're trying to make sure that longevity of it's there and it's done properly, it's planned properly, and it's a fully functioning I don't want to say state of the art because it's not going to be state of the art, but it's going to be a very nice training ground for the guys to.
And if it's going to become a public resource as well, will you be looking at like cafeteria and eat and drink and stuff like that?
Exactly. Yeah. So the other half is the public available one, which will be the 4G pitches available for hire, like Garrans and other places. And that will need a cafe. It will need changing rooms for whoever's using it.
Which will again be money to the club's benefit coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when we talked about before, we're losing 1.7-ish this year. We're not expecting fans to get that to 0. We're expecting, the public through hiring 4G pitches to make.
Well, you can't, can you? It's quite a big dent.
It's got to be other services, and eventually everything chips away at it.
Yeah.
But those 4G pitches, I won't put a timeline on it yet.
Okay.
One of the things, it might seem like we've been here for a year, right? But we clearly weren't going to pay architects to design something that we didn't own. So I almost say we were treading water for a year. It's not like we were in the building and really putting our stamp on it. It's inappropriate to put your stamp on it till you don't own it.
You've really been here for a couple of months, haven't you?
Yeah. We
officially.
really kept the lights on, paid all the wages, did all the basics, and had some ideas. We said, what are we thinking? But we didn't engage architects.
No.
Why would you if you don't own something?
I think you did enough in that treading water stage. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you might think, hey, they've been here for a year.
Surely they got the plans.
But no, surely they got the plans. But no, we didn't pay
most people would recognise that that's not something you do. I mean, you were wearing an expensive pair of trunks and armbands, weren't you, for that year? You were doing what you did to get to this stage.
The best analogy is exchanging contracts on a house and then getting plans done for the extensions and getting built. You just don't do it. You just don't do it. And once you're in, you've got the keys. You then go in and then you say, right, I'm confident in that I can
exactly
plan.
once you've got those keys in your hand,
which is where we are now, or 50 days ago. So it takes time, but yeah.
Do you own the training ground, or is this again being leased from Ron?
We own the training ground.
Okay. A final bit of housekeeping then.
Is this all housekeeping?
Yeah, the consortium. I've ran out of fingers and toes, but am I right in saying there's 10 of you guys now involved?
There is.
Okay.
So sorry, you've ran out of fingers and toes?
Yeah, well, to count how many of you
10.
there are. Yeah, because I can't count either.
Let's hope we don't get an 11.
Yeah. They say too many cooks can spoil the broth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how does it work with all these different personalities and ideas?
Well, we've got a board of 6 people. There's 10 of us, so we have a board of 6 people. So the board meets, at the moment we meet monthly, but every 2 months, quarterly would be probably more common if you were in a steady state, which we're not.
Who's on the board?
Me, John Watson, Tom Lawrence, Gary Lockett, Jason Brown and Dave Cradley.
Okay.
And then every May we have a process where we kind of vote and refresh.
So it's very democratic.
It is very democratic, but there's not that we ever really get to a vote. We're talking about topics, but we're not sitting in the topic and at the end go, right, discussion's up, let's put to a vote. Most of the discussion finds its way to a consensus or a solution just organically. We're never sitting there going, right, time's up, let's do a straw poll. But we have a mechanism where if we had to vote on something, there's tiebreaker mechanisms, like as chairman, I've got a casting vote if it's deadlock. So I think the question is obviously about, hey, if you've got too many people, do you get stuck and can nothing get done? Well, no, because we can always take it to a vote and there's always a tiebreaker. So nothing.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, it's a serious outfit, right? Yeah. And obviously, a lot of the guys around me I know will always do rock, like self-respecting men, right? So just a cheeky little bit of paper and win. So there'll always be a mechanism to break any deadlocks if we're stuck. So, and it's funny, right? You could say, does it slow you down? Not really because of what I just described, but sometimes slowing down is good. If you're a single person, if it was just me, you can make decisions, be super decisive. And that's great if you've got the right decisions and they happen without friction. But some of the ideas are best to be slowed down. I might think something is so obvious, but when you discuss it, the other guys are going, hold on, no, I'm not on board with this. So,
but you need people to challenge you. No one wants a number 2 that just says yes all the time.
Oh no, that's not a number 1,
healthy or
constructive. And it's also constant, right? So we're talking on a
chat,
daily, weekly, but it's not like we all meet once a month. Go right, I want to do this and this. Our feedback is 24 hours a day. It's constantly going. Everyone's got ideas. We have an ideas board where you walk past someone. I spoke to a taxi driver yesterday. He says something. I go, oh, that's not a bad idea. Actually, I'm not saying every time someone tells us something we go back with it. But if it makes sense and we say, I'm just going to log this as a suggestion for me that I think might be beneficial, and then we, at the board meeting, we might look at some of these and go, actually, that makes perfect sense, and we'll go through it. And we're all grown ups. We've all worked in businesses. We understand, that there's going to be yeses and nos, and and as Justin said, you absolutely need to be challenged. That's the whole point. Like, none of us would do this on our own.
No,
there's absolutely no interest in any of us doing this on our own. So you need to be challenged. Like I might come up. I'm also a fan, right? So I come up with ideas where I'm just like, oh, this sounds like a great idea. Let's just do this, and then someone like Tom Lawrence, who's like, yeah, great idea, but also this and this because we've had this before, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's all like we're learning as we're going along.
Different perspectives, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I totally agree because I get asked that a lot about too many cooks, but so far there's been absolutely 0 episodes of that.
So hypothetically, Manchester United coming and offer you £500,000 for Gus Scott Morris, and after you say, yeah, let's cash in, let's do it. After you like, no, come on, we could get in the playoffs this year. Let's keep him.
I don't think you.
So how would that work if it was straight down the middle?
I think if that happened, we would talk to Kev and John first, and they'd be very, very involved in the decision.
That's good to hear.
They might go for $500,000. We would like to reinvest, or they might say it's not. We'd understand. If we're mid-table with with 2 games to go in the season, it's different. What their contract status is. So, any topic, whether it's something like that, a bid for our best player, or whether it's something else, we discuss it, and if everyone's kind of aligned, well, then there's no brainer. If it's really on the line, eventually, I guess we'd go to a vote, and there's always a tiebreaker mechanism. So I think the good thing about it is, like anything in democracy, right? Lots of different people's opinions will tend to get to better outcomes. I mean, adding to the decision-making, the fan advisory board, right? So before we make decisions, we really want to make sure we're representing as many of the fan base as possible. I think that's part of our job, right, is to understand what the whole club wants. And, of course, there'll always be different views.
Yeah.
And make informed decisions, with as many people as possible. So I think the fact that you haven't got a single owner who can be decisive and emphatic, I think what we gain in different opinions and different perspectives is a net positive. But you always have to be careful of, are you going to get bogged down? Well, no, we've got structures that make sure, even if we end up with 50 people in COSU, there's still a 6-person board, there's still tie-breaking. People don't have to worry about friction and too many chefs because ultimately we can bring things to a head if we need to.
Doesn't usually end well at football clubs when one dictator's making all the decisions, does it?
Well, it can do, right? There are some owners who are a single owner, have a vision, have the money, and they have the money that if they get it wrong, it doesn't matter. Abramovich at Chelsea. So it can work, but the downside is if the owner's not up for it financially or capability-wise, you're kind of screwed, right?
So no more.
Yeah.
As I say, one of the big things as well to me, which one of the biggest jobs you guys have got, is trust. This club's name has been dragged through the dirt for so long. Winding up orders, embargoes, staff and players not getting paid. Players wouldn't want it to come here. Agents wouldn't want to deal with a club. You've already said about local businesses have been good. They wouldn't want to touch the club with a barge pole. Do you feel, I know it's only a couple of months officially, that trust is starting to grow again now you guys are here? And I'm talking not locally, like in the football world, because you know what it's like in the football world. Everyone hears anything. There's no secrets. And the name of the club, it has, it's been bad. And I wouldn't want to go and work for someone that didn't pay me.
Yeah, so one of the things, I had a chat with, it was definitely with Tom, I think Kev and John were there as well. But one of the things we said recently was, before we got into what are we going to do with the transfer market, what are we going to do with this, that and the other, and where are the 4G pitches, we started the conversation. It was pretty recently. We said, I said, I really want to be known as a club that does things right. We've all grown up in football with those clubs that go, yeah, they're a good club, they're good people, they do things right. Arsenal, for all our, Arsenal had that reputation as, good old values-driven club.
Yeah.
So for me, it was really important that we're a club that does things right. And I think you've seen little touches. We made sure we acknowledged York and their role that they played.
Yes, that was a lovely touch.
On the start of the season. And make no mistake, I didn't say, hey, I want a plaque behind. But setting the culture of we want to be a club that does things right, we want to do the right thing, we want to treat people well. Once you align on that culture, then these little actions become natural to people in all parts of the organisation. Because, rebuilding faith in the community and the National League and other clubs, everyone's confidence in us is really important. You can't operate in any system in any part of society if no one trusts you or believes you. So that's really, really important. Is that trust coming back? Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there are signs. I mean, the crowds are up and people wouldn't get behind the club and put their money into it if they didn't believe that we were doing the right thing. The business community is certainly coming back, to your point before.
Yeah.
But we just got to keep... I think if we keep doing the right thing, people will see that. And we'll get some stuff wrong, right? Of course we will. But if we keep trying to do the right thing and be balanced and then listen to people and take feedback on the chin when it comes, I don't know, all you can do is be judged on your actions, right? And I think if we keep doing the right things, I'm sure the wider community will see that and get behind it.
Transparency, you said it before, right? Transparency is big for us. There's no hidden agendas with us. We are what we are. And I think that helps with trust. It's not a switch you can turn on overnight, and rightly so, because if I was a fan and people come in that I didn't know, I'd want to build that trust up with them. If we're as transparent as possible with everything we do when we can be, eventually that will lead to hopefully the trust being built back up.
It does make a massive difference. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, and I think people have already feel like that. The bridge, burnt bridges have been rebuilt and started to be rebuilt and stuff like that. It's great stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
What I would say that as well is everyone's been overwhelmingly supportive, but we're also very, very aware. We know what we've done in a pivotal time of the club's history to save it, but we also know we'll ultimately be judged on the next 5 years. So
they could turn on you tomorrow.
There's that, right? If we hadn't won on Tuesday, this was going to be a very nervous interview. So I get that, but by more mean, there's been a big event, i.e. the takeover, and it wasn't a formality. It wasn't just fill in a couple of forms and the club's all yours. It was difficult, and I think people respected how hard it was to get. I mean, we would have preferred an easier sale, but because it was so hard.
Just pleased that you stuck around and did what you did.
Well, because it was so hard, and I think a lot of people went, wow, how have these guys not walked away? I mean, we internally went, wow, this is getting tougher than we thought. That's maybe built a little bit of trust because it was obvious that we were in a pretty difficult position. But ultimately, we'll be judged whether we were good custodians in 5 years' time.
Yes.
Have we been communicative? Have we been open? Have fans had a voice? Have we given the fans some tangible protections from its ownership now and future? And have we moved the club to a better position than we found it? That's what we should ultimately be judged on. But I think people seem to be giving us the benefit of the doubt, but we're not just going, okay, well, we're not resting on those laurels.
No.
We know we've got a lot of hard work to do, and we're focused on that, I guess. And we're happy to be judged on our actions and take the feedback when maybe we don't live up to something we've promised.
Okay, right. So let's. I mean, the thing that really excites me about what you guys are going to do long term is Solihull, which we touched on a little bit. Now, we spoke about the revamp of the ground when we took your dog for a walk and had a few beers in Lee a few months back.
Yeah.
Before the takeover went through.
And before I thought we were getting 20 million. Yeah,
yes.
carry on. Yeah.
We both agreed that the East Stand is the jewel in the crown.
Yep.
Of what you want to do. And you've already said with a figure of around 15 million quoted as what it would cost to do this stand.
Yeah, I think that'd be the lowest we'd be able to do it for, I suspect, yeah.
With better banqueting facilities, bars, retail units, etc. underneath and inside the ground. When would you expect that work to begin?
I almost couldn't say. I think we've got to make sure we've got the money. So I think it'd be probably remiss to guess. What I would say is we'd love to do it ASAP. It'll depend on whether I can find the financing.
Are you close to finding any of these finances?
We've got different avenues that we think are worth exploring, but yeah.
People that are keen to get involved?
Less about people, more about there's some options with normal bank lenders, and there's also some potential partnerships with the council, but they're too early to sort of pop them out there. This isn't a cloak and dagger thing. It's like, hey, there's 10 things. Let me explore them and see which ones truly stand up to scrutiny and are actually viable, and then I'd rather report once we've got the solution.
It's good to hear that these discussions are ongoing and already happening. Yeah.
It's honestly one of my biggest jobs now. Like Tom's a brilliant CEO. He's got a brilliant team around him. So the organisation is really in good hands, the day-to-day running it. Mm-hmm. Big thing for me was to make sure we had a bit better communication. I don't mean that we posted better on Twitter. I meant some of the feedback forms that we've just launched and QR codes around the ground, fan advisory board, some of those things there to make sure that we're doing a bunch of stuff as a club, but am I sure that if fans have feedback that we're actually going to get it? I think that's getting towards being in place, those things. That allows me to go, okay, the fan base and Tom, there's enough communication that things will improve. Now let's look really big picture and go and find how we're going to renovate this, everything.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. So the East Stand would be phase 1. And we also spoke about the West Stand becoming the new adopted main stand during that demolition and rebuilding of the East, with the catering facilities, etc., being upgraded over there. And I think you said to me something about filling in the space between the walls at the back of the stand and the walls from the houses with new catering facilities all along there.
I'm not sure.
Because people need to be comfy there while this is being done.
Well, it's not just that, right? So at the moment, we want to be able to improve selling food and beer in the West Stand, right? I think it's pretty limited what we can do there. There's like a couple of bars with limited capacity. So we want to look at what we can do there, and we'll get some plans, whether we cover that open area or not, or whether we put a container outside or not.
At the moment, it's just Smoker's Alley, isn't it?
Well,
but that could be. But there's a lot of space there where you could do that sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's not you can't do as much as you think. You've got to get permission from the council. So we're working at the moment of how do we increase food and beverage in the West. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're trying to bring on the Northwest online. They're sort of, in our world, they're separate little projects, but we're trying to do both of those. So I wouldn't say the East End will be phase 1 because it's so much money. It's one of the last things we'll do, in fact.
Right.
I think you want to sort of do bunch of other improvements, and we want to do a fan zone at some point. We were super keen to get that done first. We're now sort of pausing for thought a bit about where to put it. You don't want to put it there and then you knock down the East End, you have to move it. So we are maybe curbing our enthusiasm on a couple of things and just making sure we've planned it so we don't waste a bunch of money doing the wrong thing. But we want to make some sort of improvements all around because, of course, when the East Stand is knocked down, then everybody will need to be in the other stands.
Yes.
But I wouldn't say the improvements we're making are just for that. We're making it because we want people in the West to be able to get a beer easier, and we want away fans. I love being an away fan, right? But I'd love it less if I couldn't get a beer. So we want to make these improvements because they're the right improvements to make. East will happen last because it's the biggest expense. but it is the one that will most move the needle on that £1.7 million loss I told you. The two biggest needle movers, I think, are the new East Stand whenever it happens and the 4G pitches at the training ground. Lots of the other stuff are great and important, but they probably aren't individually got the same magnitude as those two things.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine the South Stand's more of a bit of a polish up and opening getting some better catering in there. But let's talk about the North Bank. I mean, the fabled stand. Yeah. We could still have a major upgrade there if the finance was in place, couldn't we? Because it could go backwards and upwards. And I think we spoke before about it could even create a cop for the club, couldn't it?
Yeah, I would love that, personally. I think we all would. And at some point in our future, I would envisage a new North Bank, a new cop end. Part of the history that I love of Southend is, fans built the ground, donated to the club. And I know that our fans used to have the North Bank as their home end. Right now, it's right that the away fans are there because we're only allowed to use 800 of it. So if we gave it back to home fans, we'd still only be able to use that little pocket.
But the thing is, you get 50 of them in there and they make a racket because of the acoustics under that roof. They sound like thousands, don't they?
Well, right now, I think we're right to do what we've got. But, I mean, in the future, I would love a new North Bank. But I would say the new East Stand is at least financially more important. So, I mean, a lot of this stuff, we're so early, right?
Yes.
So even we in COSU haven't sat down and had these sorts of chats, right?
No, but I mean, most of us are fans. I've stood in the North Bank before. We all want. That's one of the things we all want.
We grew up on the North Bank, didn't we?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So we
Did
want
you
that
grow
back.
Up, Bernie?
No, never.
not literally. So all those things, like fans are they talking about it? We're talking about it constantly.
Good.
We want to do that.
That's great to hear.
But the hardest part that we have is kind of fan / custodians, is that if you did everything with your heart, then you sort of you run into some problems, right? So we need to sit back and say, look, we want this. This is the goal. Can't rush into it and do it. Make the wrong decision. So yeah, we would love to get that back in. And as Justin said, the stuff we need to do first to get to that point. This isn't a 2-year project for us. This is a long-term project. So they're definitely on our radar of things to do. Like, we're not thinking about it at all. But as Justin said, there's stuff to do first to help move the needle.
So obviously, we're not anywhere near the stage of architects drawing plans for new stands and stuff like that. Would you expect planning permission to be straightforward for these grandiose ideas in the future?
No. Would I expect planning permission to be straightforward? No. Is the answer
is it
to
ever?
that?
Yeah.
Is it ever when you want to do anything? So we'll do a lot of pre-work on that to make sure we get the right specialists and consultants in to make sure we're doing it in the right way. So I'd imagine that we'd eventually be successful in it, but I don't expect it to be here's the plans, we want to do this, and they go, yeah, crack on.
Ron's probably got a few architects, he's had a few designs, he could probably give you a few tips.
Oh, we'll reach out and get some tips from them.
What sort of, I mean, you must have a number when we're playing our Championship Manager, Football Manager Elite Edition here, playing it for real. What sort of capacity would you like Rootsall to have at the end of all of this, once we're all done in all this year's time?
100,000?
What do you think's achievable?
I mean, if I chucked a number out, 15,000. But this sort of stuff, we've got to get advice on, right? All of these decisions matter. But if you ask me to guess, 15, but maybe not straight away. It might be that the new East Stand gets us to 13, and then the plan to increase capacity is at an eventual new North Bank. All this stuff. What you don't want is, it's better to have a stadium at 15 and you think, damn, we could have got 16 most times, than 20 and it's always half empty.
Yeah.
But my opinion doesn't really have much weight here. We'd want to get some advice, and they'll go, hey, we strongly recommend it's 14 with this much hospitality based on your demographic.
Yeah. And there's models that you can see now, Luton, Bournemouth, slightly smaller capacity that operate in the Premier League. Yeah. And if you look at, if you dive into their finances and what they've done and invested and where they are now, if you ask Luton, do you wish you did this 5 years ago? So now you're there, you could maximise revenue. They might be like, well, actually, no, this is fine for us because our local fan base. So there's a lot of thought process and calculation that goes into maximum capacities of stadia, and obviously we'll look into that. But to say there's a magic number, we don't know what it is, as much as financially possible.
You touched on a minute ago about the history of the club, the ground, the fans building it, and one person legendary in that area is Sid Broomfield. Yep. Would you be open to naming the new East Stand after him, so he's always got an enduring legacy here?
I've actually had some very private chats about Sid and understanding his legacy. Obviously, I know the high levels, but I'm trying to meet the family. But it's probably a longer chat to make sure we meet them, and if we'd love to meet them. I personally feel we should really lean into that history, right? It's such an important part of our history, and I think we've got to make sure in the future that we honour that, not just Sid, but there's more than that. The idea that fans own the ground and have a role in it as opposed to an individual or a group of owners. So exactly how we do it, I won't presuppose now, but yeah, I've reached out to try and connect with the family. And that's, I think, the first place to start is listen, hear their experience, particularly for me who's new to Southend. Is you listen and start, but I think there's a desire to honour it. But exactly how we do it, I wouldn't want to jump to.
There's no point. We all wanted to stay here, and there's no point staying here. And that's the benefit. The heritage, the history of this club and this stadium is what we're interested in. Otherwise, we'd do a shiny new stadium. So absolutely going to dive into that heritage and and sort of commemorate people that are involved. Definitely.
Well, there we have it. That's part one of the interview with Justin and Tom. And again, thank you so much, guys. Really, really appreciate your time. And we'll be bringing you part two next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Going to have a little break now, and then we'll be back with Paul's previews.
Way!
Welcome back. And now it's time for
Paul's previews.
Paul, double header again. The fixtures come thick and fast, don't they, in the National League?
Yep.
And we've got two away games. First one looks quite tricky this Saturday as we look to go away to Solihull Moors. What are you thinking about this one, Paul?
Well, yeah, it's going to be tough, isn't it? It is going to be tough. They're always going to be up there, thereabouts, I think, Solihull Moors. I mean, it's a tricky place to go. If we're looking at our form at the moment, in our last five, we've just won the one game. We have drawn 2, lost 2, but we're scoring as many as we concede. We've scored 7, conceded 8, so we need to kind of shore it up at the back. Scoring doesn't seem to be a problem at the minute, but we're just giving away silly goals. So if we can iron that out, we might be with a bit of a shout.
A little bit of defensive solidity needed.
Well, we get the win on the road.
Yeah.
We've drawn 2, lost 2, and we have scored 3, conceding that 5. So we've really got to kind of, bolt this on. We're going to win at some point.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
We've
We've got to be positive because, we know Waldron's injured. We've got Josh Walker's not fit yet.
And Bridges being asked to play quite far out of position, almost part of that front line as like a number 10, which is a symptom there of the squad depletion. So it's going to be tricky until everyone's back fighting fit.
Indeed, yeah. But what we've got to do is just be positive straight away. We showed that in the first half against Eastleigh, second half against Fylde. We now need to just join the dots, put it all together, and have 90 minutes of pure bonanza stuff.
Keep that concentration to the end and avoid, conceding silly goals. Basically, it's like football basics, isn't it? But
yeah, I mean, we do enjoy playing Solihull. I mean, we've beaten them the last 3 times, really, 3-0, 5-0, and then last time we were up there, we won 3-0. But we are without Cav Miley, who scored that screamer. Obviously, Caldwell's gone. It is going to be very difficult. I mean, Solihull, their last 5 in the league, they've won 3, drawn 1, lost 1, but they don't score many. They've only scored 5, and they've conceded 3. And at home, they're a bit of the draw masters.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've only won 1, drawn 3, lost 1, scoring 4, conceding 4.
Okay.
So, it's going to be tight, I think, this game. I think I'm going to go for maybe 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good point, wouldn't it?
It would be a good point away at the moment, I would say, because they have got some notable players there as well that we've got to be with. One ex-boy. John Benton. We had him at Southend, prolific in the academy and the reserves and whatnot. Then he moved to Averley. He was a bit of a goal scoring machine, and now he's at Sutton. So, but do you remember Johnny Bostock? Used to play for Forest.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a journeyman, played out across Europe, but he's coming towards the twilight of his career. And then Jordan Tunnicliffe. Did you ever watch the Wrexham documentary?
Yeah. He's defender, right?
Yeah, so he's now there. He's left Wrexham to go to Sutton.
Yeah.
And then Well, we know all about their top man, Tavon Campbell. He got 9 in 19 last season.
Okay.
But I think he might be injured because he hasn't played in a while.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Oh, actually, no, forget that. I think I might actually be talking absolute nonsense. Yeah, I think he scored once. Yeah, no, he may be back. Yeah, but we know all about him. But look, we know what Solihull are about.
Yeah.
But I'll take a draw.
Yeah.
I would absolutely take a draw if we got it.
And then it's potentially, on paper, a bit of an easier away game. Although we just said, didn't we, nothing comes easy. But it's Wealdstone away on Tuesday night. And you're going to try and get to that one, I think. And,
yes.
And what are you thinking ahead of that game?
The way they are at the moment, they're there for the taking, I'd say.
Yeah.
We're going to take big numbers. It's going to be a great game. Wealdstone in the league, not doing very well at all. They've only won 1, drawn 2, lost 2, scoring the 4, conceding 6. So when you concede more than you score, you're in trouble. Aren't you?
Yeah.
And they've only had 4 home games this season, winning 1, losing 3, scoring 1, conceding 4. So they're not very good in their own backyard. They are there for the taking. So I'm expecting us to really put on a show. If we have any of our injuries come back, you'd be looking for goals. Pebble needs a goal. Bonne needs a goal. Moncur needs a goal. I mean, this would be the game where you expect them all to be.
Just anyone that's not, a defender by trade.
Not a centre back or a right back.
Step forward and score, please. Yeah. Help the defenders out with some goals, boys.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen? We're going to win 2-1 and Collins going to score a header in the 95th minute.
It's like lopsided version of a normal, where it's like over-reliance on the forward line for goals. Now it's like at Southend, it's the opposite. So come on, boys, chip in. If you play most of your game in the opposition's half, you need to be chipping in with some goals here.
I think it's going to click. You can see in parts over the last few games, we're building that momentum up. I mean, it will click eventually. Could this be the game where we could go on a mad run of 13 unbeaten or whatever? Yeah. We never know. But we've got to keep 2 people quiet at Wealdstone.
Yeah.
Do you remember Craig Eastman, the Arsenal wonder kid? He ended up going to COSU, bit of a journeyman. He's there now.
Yeah.
And we all know about their top man, Sean Adarkwa. He scored 10 in 33 last season. But I do believe he's injured, so we might not be seeing him.
Okay.
And was there a rumour of him coming to Southend?
I don't know. You mentioned that.
I don't know. We'd have to give what's his name, London Shrimper, a shout. He seems to know everything. But we'll see what happens there. We're at Wealdstone. I am confident on that game, and I'm going to go 3-1 Southend.
Okay.
Okay. That's the one I'm going to go with there, Moy.
Nice. So you're expecting a draw, maybe a win, and then a win against Wealdstone.
Yeah, I think so. I think because
4 points minimum target.
Yeah, and I think Wealdstone. Because the boys are hurting a bit, especially after the Fylde game.
Yeah.
There's a point to prove.
The motivation must be there.
Exactly. We're not a bad team. We're not a bad squad at all.
Yeah.
We've just been a little bit unlucky. And you just need a bit more confidence, taking our chances first time, all of that stuff, and iron out these silly mistakes, and then we're flying.
Good stuff. Well, that's the end of what has been a bumper episode. So I will say a big thanks to you, Paul, for joining me.
Always a pleasure, never a chore.
And a big thank you to Justin and Tom, and of course Bernie, for the interview, which we will have the second part of that next week on next week's episode. So please don't forget to subscribe and follow wherever you're listening, or if you're on YouTube, you're kind of watching, I suppose, although it's not really much of a visual feast, just a static image. But yeah, do give us a follow and do spread the word. Click the share button in whatever app you're in and send it to your mates so that they can enjoy that interview. We'll be back with part 2 of that next week, and all that's left to say is up the blues.
Up the blues.